It's always nice to have another cinematic percussion library. Many developers create their own take on this kind of library, each adding their own unique sound and combination of instruments to the package, like Audict's Drums of the Deep, Heavyosity's Damage, Strezov's Thunder Extreme, Spitfire's Hans Zimmer percussion, and Soundiron's Apocalypse percussion. But there hasn't really been a library that offers something different from the core functionality and playability perspective. Until now. That library is Strikeforce by Laboratory Audio. First off, this library has a ton of different percussive combinations and single instrument sounds. There's no way I can cover each patch, so I'll be focusing on the ones that stood out to me. But the sound is only the surface of this library's power. What this library offers beyond its content is the power of its approach. Almost all of the sounds are provided with 16 round robins, which is great. But it's taken a step further by allowing the user to pick which round robins they want available, and whether they want sequenced or randomized round robin. This kind of flexibility gives the user exactly the sounds they want, whether it be specific takes or the old machine gun effect for more industrial style sounds. The close and far mics can be pitched and panned independently for these kinds of sounds. And they can have their attack and release changed independently. This extra functionality can really come in handy when you're feeling creative. The close and far mics themselves can be blended with the mod wheel, which is a nifty little thing to have. The instrument itself is pitched up and down the keyboard, with control over the panning of each pitch zone. It's not the most groundbreaking feature, but again, it can be used creatively or to make a massive sound with a single patch. The original pitch is always represented by the purple keys in the middle. Now, all of these handy tools are great to have, and they're presented in a simple and sleek manner. But we all know that at the core of all this, it always comes down to hitting a couple of velocity-sensitive keys and coming up with rhythms. Right? Well, this is where Strikeforce diverges in a very simple but genius way from other percussion libraries. When an instrument is mapped to keys with velocity-controlling dynamic layers, the performance dictates how loud or quiet the instrument sounds, much like a live instrument is recorded. That's the tradition, and that's how it works in reality. But Laboratory Audio have utilized the fact that samples need not be limited to real-world mechanics. They've opted to provide each dynamic layer of the instruments, a total of 6 dynamic layers per instrument, as a playable key in their own right. This opens up a whole new dimension of texture and playability for the composer. Rather than having the quiet dynamics pushed to the lower volume range, the quiet, medium, and hard dynamics all function as their own sounds. It's a simple and elegant approach that allows the softer dynamics to function as their own instruments, and allows a much greater variety of the instrument's personality to be heard in full. Instead of playing quieter passages and stronger passages separated like this, composer can put the spotlight on softer dynamics like this. Or you could reverse the dynamic application of the instrument. Or you could combine the softest and hardest dynamic to give the instrument a fuller bloom. The ability to play each dynamic as its own articulation is a game-changing functionality for any composer looking to stretch what's possible with percussion outside the limitations of live recordings. And I think this simple function should be standard in all percussion libraries. In this manner, as well as the round-robin control, Strikeforce sets the bar. Separated dynamics also has a very real impact on the way the composer performs live on the keyboard, as the availability of these sounds will shape what playable ideas the composer can control. This approach actually changes up the way a composer interprets rhythm, which is a huge thing in terms of creativity and scoring. To tell you the truth, this is exactly the kind of library I've always wanted to create, which is saying something, because percussion is a passion and obsession of mine. That brings us to the sound of this library. While you won't find traditional drums like tuned concert toms, djembe, udu or tablas here, what you will find are rich ensembles, down-tuned drums, snares, and creative combinations that really can't be found elsewhere. Here's a taster. The drums have a deep tone and an almost three-dimensional space to them. One thing I love is how this library manages to nail that dull slap sound, the kind of transient and frequency range that has a massive impact while maintaining control and not clipping out the fader with low and mid-frequency content. The force and energy is addictive to play, and I doubt you'll run out of interesting sounds to fit your scores anytime soon. Also provided are some reverse impacts for trailer accents, some sub-booms and background ambience, and a healthy selection of metallic ticks and tocks with a whopping 32 round robins each. This is the kind of percussion library a person who has all the other percussion libraries buys. I don't think it should be an addition to your collection. I think it should be a staple to your collection. It sets a standard that all other percussion libraries should strive to attain, and I truly hope Laboratory Audio expands their catalogue with other percussive libraries that sport the exact same approach. Because I know I'll be there just waiting to get my hands on more libraries like this one. And I'll see you next time with another library. Check you later.